Nigerian Vice-President Yemi Osinbajo has formally declared his intention to contest in next year's presidential election. Osinbajo will be seeking the ruling All Progressives Party's ticket in a bid to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari, whose tenure ends in May next year. Now, the presidential election is scheduled for February next year.
Nigerian Vice-President Yemi Osinbajo intends to run for the presidency next February, he announced on Monday. In a post on Twitter, Osinbajo said he would be seeking the ruling All Progressives Party's ticket in a bid to succeed his boss, Muhammadu Buhari. With Buhari set to step down after 2 4-year terms, the 2023 ballot is expected to be a hotly contested affair. Osinbajo's supporters tout him as a safe pair of hands.
There has been a significant shortfall.
Who would provide stability and pursue a more liberal economic policy, including the easing of forex rules. But he may find it difficult to distance himself from Buhari's policies. Critics accuse the president of racking up huge national debts and failing to tackle insecurity that has escalated across the country. Osinbajo, a 61-year-old law professor and Southern Christian pastor, will also have to fend off a challenge from Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. He's a wealthy power broker and former governor of Lagos State. Osinbajo lacks a political base of his own and will need to build a strong coalition of supporters with deep pockets. That's if he wants to take on the political machinery of Tinubu, who helped campaign for and deliver victory to Buhari in 2015 and 2019. Buhari has not said whether he will support Osinbajo or Tinubu.
Well, for some analysis on this development, we're now joined by Adeola Soetan, who's a Nigerian activist and a pro-democracy campaigner. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the program. Welcome to the Globe.
Yes, my pleasure.
All right. So the APC, I suppose, is starting to see the shifts in power as Muhammadu Buhari starts to make his exit. What do you make of the people that have put their names forward so far? Let's start with Mr. Osinbajo.
Well, Osinbajo declared expectantly because his marketers have been on social media informing us of his intention to run. He has a democratic right to do so. But the challenge is enormous because he's part and parcel of a failed Buhari government. A government that promised much, they deliver very, very little. As we speak, over 200 people were killed within 24 hours in Plateau State and Benue State. And death has been a daily occurrence by terrorists or the so-called bandits. Just about 10 days ago, train was bombarded by terrorists. As we speak, we have over 170 Nigerians being held hostage by terrorists. And of course, about 10 people died in that incident. You look at economy, terribly bad. Terribly bad. Nigerians have become victims of misgovernance. Terribly bad economy. Because the government of Buhari and Osinbajo, of course, APC party, is hooked to pro-capitalist, anti-people, neoliberal economic policies and programs, i.e., devaluation of the currency, deregulation of the commodity of the economy, including oil, commercialization of infrastructure, and of course, privatization.
All right.
Today,
so there's a number of problems that you're suggesting. My next question maybe then is, a vice president is a vice president. They are there as part of the ticket, but they don't really have the same power as the president. And so is it fair to say that because Buhari failed, that Mr. Osinbajo will suffer because of that? And then the next question that comes with it is, has Mr. Buhari, President Buhari, blessed Osinbajo's candidacy?
Well, the second question, I'm not sure and I don't know. But it's just reasonable to suggest that as close as they are, I do not think an incumbent serving vice president will exercise his democratic right to contest or to aspire without informing his boss, the president. Anyway, that is not even my issue. Of course, the vice president, they have a joint ticket. It's like a Sesame Street, a conjoint twin. So what goes to other comes to other. Don't forget, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President is the chairman of the Economic Council of the President. And of course, when he declared, I read that declaration speech over and over again. There was nowhere he mentioned any failure of this government. In fact, he promised to intensify all the programs of Buhari. And what that means, even if it's not the captain of the ship, as a co-captain, he agreed. Anywhere he does, anywhere he goes, he defends all the policy, all the anti-people policy programs of government, and also defend the good program they were able to do within the government. So if he doesn't have the captainship, or what of if you are declaring, and you say that I will continue with the good programs of Buhari, my president, while we are going to look into all the programs people have complained about with a view to adjust and amend. That will sound reasonable. That is trying to say it's not in charge. But when you embraced, I didn't say anything wrong in what you are doing. So, I mean, there's nothing, it can never, it can never and never dissociate itself.
Okay.
Even with your statement.
Especially if it gets an official blessing, I guess it makes it more difficult. But let's talk a little bit about other candidates maybe that are looking to lead the APC into this election. The name of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has come up, and he's seen as someone who's got a powerful base and very influential. Could this have a bearing in terms of who then is elected to be the APC's candidate for the presidency?
Well, it's part of failure of Buhari's government anti-corruption program. Because if the corruption program is real and it's not selective, almost all those candidates, including Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, should be under trial or convicted because of several allegations that are leveled, and of course, predictive calculation of wealth. But Osinbajo cannot, of course, claim ignorance of all this because he served Tinubu as Attorney General of Lagos State for years, I think about 8 years. And it was part and parcel of Tinubu machinery of accumulation, and of course, converting Lagos State property to private uses. The only thing that goes for him is when you compare him with Asiwaju, despite Asiwaju's so-called machinery, is that he has an identity. At least you can trace it. You can trace his identity. Who he is, which school he went, his pedigree, and what have you. That's the only difference. Apart from that, he is part and parcel. Don't forget, we run a democracy where the oligarchy across the zones of the nation and ethnic groups determine who they want to select. So in APC, it's not going to be determined really by any machinery or no machinery. It's going to be determined by the president, essentially, who the party is going to present. If you look at how they conducted their national convention, those who are agreed by consensus are president candidates, all true. The same thing applied to Obasanjo when he was there.
Yeah.
So except the voters decide otherwise, apart from the president, incumbent president determining essentially who is going to succeed him as his party card bearer. Then you also have the money bags and the interest. The fear they are likely going to have for Asiwaju is that, look, this man is terribly rich. And they know what it means. They may not want to consider him because of his richness, his controversial image. Adding power to that will constitute a tiger to them. And you know, the ruling class in Nigeria, as indolent as they are.
We've run out of time, but perhaps one last question that you can help us with. There's been this issue of north-south rotation, Muslim, Christian. Does Mr. Osinbajo, being a southern Christian, help his case, given that the current President Buhari is a northerner?
Well,
I'm just saying.
All this issue of Christianity, Islam, all this issue of Christianity, Islam, they are fake. Because who among them can call themselves true Christian or true Muslim? They rig election, they loot, but they use that as a cover-up to deceive people. And it's also the weakness of the revolutionary forces in Nigeria, i.e. the labor movement and other social movements that allow this minor pedestrian division among the people. But I will tell you, Nigerian voters consider performance and economic issue over and beyond religious issue in Nigeria. On ethnic, as it may be, I will tell you, during Adeola, when he won the presidential election, that was annulled. Nobody considered religion, nobody considered ethnic group. They were looking at a better candidate, and I hope at the end of the day, when all the parties consider their candidates and present them, people are going to decide on performance, pedigree, integrity, programs and manifestos, and mutual respect of candidates and voters in terms of answering their question and giving solutions that are meaningful. Everybody that call themselves Muslim, Christian, Kurukere to Jerusalem, to Mecca, to Kurukere to mosque, to church, is meaningless when you are stealing. Is there any scripture, Bible, Quran, or the Ududua, the Ifa, that tells you that you go and steal money, that you embezzle money, that you rig election, that you kill people? To me, religion is such a vague identity. This so-called political leaders are parading. How many of them really are true Christian, true Muslim, in the proper perspective of it? If Nigeria has the highest number the largest number of churches per kilometer in the whole world. Yet, see what is happening. Yeah. Corruption everywhere, poverty everywhere.
Okay, Mr. Soetan.
Just a few days ago.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but it looks like we're going to have another conversation quite soon. But it's interesting to see what happens in the coming days. But thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight.
It's my pleasure. My regard too. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Adeola Soetan, who is joining us about the APC's candidates putting their names forward for election as party leaders, and then consequently running for presidency in the Nigerian elections, which are scheduled for next year. These are interesting times indeed for the most populous country on the continent. We're going to take a break, and when we come